being with us this evening. The evacuation procedure, the first 3 doors are for officers and the other 2 windows are for members. Just let you know, you know the normal details, down the stairs, over the road. If you need any help, please shout. I always get puzzled with this one. Please let the staff know if you can't get down the stair when there's a fire. Are you escaping yourself or something, and instead of that you're going to help us decrepit people? You can actually tell us the porter's about 300 miles away now, aren't you? Anyway, so that's the rules we abide by. The agenda is, if, as I say, the normal procedure down. I shouldn't use the list as a file or anything like that. Apologies, we've got Councillor Duffin.
And Councillor Copeland.
And Councillor Copeland. Members, they accept those?
And one resigned as well, I can tell you, so we're 1 short.
I'm sure that'll be taken in the appropriate place. Minutes of the 19th, the 1st, 17, everybody happy with them?
Yes.
Okay, sign those.
Never fair what was it, isn't it?
And with that shirt,
Shut it. Right, mate, stop.
The agenda book is item 12, 6 has been moved to item 12 now, which we will come back to. So the item 7, draft housing policy allocation on page 23. And the best of luck with this agenda because it's that long. I hope you're all ready.
Twice.
I don't
3 times.
So, okay. Which office? Jane, you're
You do the allocation, I'll do the structure.
Good. I'm sorry. Oh,
Chair, have we got to do declaration, please?
oh, I haven't done that.
No. If you did,
Oh,
I
no,
didn't hear you. I
okay,
do
we'll go through
apologise.
that one.
I just need to declare that I sit on the Residents' Partnership and I assume NASCOM.
I'm normally pretty
Sorry.
good on. That's all right. No, I keep forget these things. That's where members we work together on the committee, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
To
right.
remind an idiot chairman that he's doing things wrong.
Well, it's not hard to remind you.
Yeah. Anybody else got any declaration of interest or?
That was Scotland, what did you say, Lynn?
Normally they
Sorry?
get written in the
You need the
agenda,
best-
don't they?
NASCOM,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Resident Partnership, because of the housing.
A lot of them things now that they're right them in the agenda.
Because my
So,
comments are...
yeah.
Anything else? Are we okay?
Thank you.
All
You
yours.
ready for me? Right.
Best of
I'll
Britain.
try and make it quick.
Quick.
Okay, so if we go on to page 24, we just start with the changes to the policy. We came here in 2015, so these are just changes in law and legislation that we wish to put in. Okay, so first of all, we wanted to change the name to the housing allocations policy just to simplify it a little bit. Then we moved on to independent living, which has already been through Cabinet on the 25th of January. So that is just to alter what was decided at Cabinet within this policy. So the main points there were the decommissioned of Bridge Street, Hall End, Templar Court and Windsor Court to make them into general purpose schemes, and then to move over Poets Corner, Pine Tree Avenue, York Avenue, Oakham Crescent into Category 1. What we also wanted to do there is just to make the policy clear, because we do allow people that are aged 55 and over into now what's called independent living accommodation, but it's not very clear on the policy that we do that when somebody's got a very high welfare or high medical need. So we just wanted to make that clear in the wording so that people understood and weren't confused about who can apply and who can't. Okay, so shall I ask for questions after each section? Is that what you normally do?
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're
So we
happy
go
with
through,
that, unless
yeah.
you
Is there any questions on that one?
on the
We've got
first.
about 6, I can.
Yeah, we've got a couple. The general purse scheme which will be allocated customers over 55. This change will come into effect from May the 1st.
Yeah.
55, and I remember, how did we get down 50? Okay, I know we were talking at one time 58, because it was 60s and people were not going in and we were struggling.
Right.
How the dickens we come tumbling down to 55?
Well, it's to do with, it's like we had it at 60 plus,
Yeah.
to begin with, if you remember last time, and it was about the right to buy. So the right to buy legislation came in, so anyone aged 60 and over couldn't buy it. So basically now there's a clause in that right to buy, if you're 55 and over, as long as the property's been advertised for somebody that's aged 60 plus with high welfare, high medical, then they still can't buy it at that age. So that's what we've mirrored. So it's just the legislation really that we've mirrored.
And that, and just go a bit further on 432,
Yeah.
how many apartments have we got there in the schemes? Because what I've read, if they're not going to do anything until all people have removed out, we could end up with one person in there and the rest of the scheme not earning a penny, just sitting there with nothing. Am I reading this wrong? Am I reading
Yeah,
this
so
correct?
basically what we're saying is with the scheme, we thought it wasn't reasonable at the minute, because most people
Yes,
in
I've
there are
heard
over
that.
60,
Yeah.
to put a load of people that might be in their 20s or 30s in. So we put that age limit in, and then eventually, I mean, we'd have to bring that back here if we wanted to remove that age limit, and say we've got a load of difficult to lets in a particular scheme and there wasn't anyone in there that was over 55, we might try and look at changing the age then. But as it stands, it's 55 plus. And that's the label that's going to go on the advert.
Yeah. Yeah. The point is if we're going to let people stay there right till 55 do, and we're not going to put other people in until everybody's happy, and then we can get on and do what we want. The point is, if let's just take up. Say there's 10 people in, 55 or over. Now we've got to wait, and there's got to wait till all them out.
No,
And we've got
it's not that.
5 other apartments that are empty,
Okay.
and nobody else is going to go into there till we've
No,
got
no, you've got
them
that
out.
wrong. It's the empty properties.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't go in unless you're 55 and over, so we're not going to have any empty properties. We're just saying that you've got to be 55 and over to go in.
To go in here.
Yeah,
That's yeah.
yeah,
Because you've got to benefit in the end, because if you're bringing the age down to 55, then
Yeah.
obviously you're going to get more people applying,
Yeah.
hopefully at that. But
Yeah,
they're not
exactly.
applying at the moment, are they?
no, so that, hopefully
Okay.
that will work.
Um,
Okay, do you want me
yeah.
to?
Oh yeah,
We're not on that bit.
we ain't on that.
Right, shall I move on then?
Anybody, members, there's just a couple of points I just think. Has members got any points on the report so far, people? No?
I'd have it down
Okay.
to 20.
Sorry?
I'd have it down to 20. No, go on.
Okay, shall I move on then? Right, this is, again, this is just a bit of legislation and law really. It's around 16 to 17 year olds. We do get applications for people that are aged 16 and 17, where we've got a statutory homeless duty or a special agency referral. So like they've been in child foster care and social services, and now they want to get them rehoused. So what we're saying is people of that age group can't legally hold a tenancy. We do look for any type of supported accommodation rather than using our own stock, which is what we've already done. But what we're going to do in line with the legislation is ask for a guarantor until that prospective tenant is 18. And then obviously if there is issues in the tenancy and we need to resolve them through court, it would be the guarantor that we could approach. So it is just a matter of putting a safeguarding in there of that guarantor really. But that's a very small handful. We really do not like to house 16, 17s. Yeah, it is. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. How do you go about getting the guarantor then? Because one would assume that if they are homeless people under the age of 16 and 17 and they're trying to seek a tenancy on their own, those who you would normally look at, i.e. the parents, grandparents, extended family, wouldn't necessarily be around. So who do you go to actually get the guarantor?
It's whoever the guardian is. So normally it would be children's services. So because they've got, at 16 and 17, they have a responsibility under section 17 of that act. So they basically would have to be that guarantor.
So the majority of the ones you get under this are social services
Yeah.
ones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chris, and then you could. Did you put your hand
No,
up?
no, no.
Sorry, I thought. Yeah, go on.
Is-
Georgia.
Do we have any way of safeguarding with, for example, to stop people with exploitative ideas harvesting these 16 and 17-year-olds and using them as standing as guarantors for them for things that maybe are not quite so that we would want happening to 16 and 17-year-olds?
You mean that they don't get manipulated? Is
Yeah,
that the sort
yeah.
of- yeah, I mean, that's the package basically.
That
So
would be
with
a
us,
perfect opportunity for somebody to set up some sort of...
I mean, the idea is we've got support as within the borough anyway, so
Yeah.
we've got different support agencies that would be able to put that support in, and with them working with social services, they put that package around as well. So the idea is to very closely monitor that tenancy up
So-
to the age of 18, but it's the same package we put in for vulnerable people anyway.
So we would monitor, for example, if we've got one person whose name comes up, we would actually reject that, and then what happens to the 16 and 17-year-old that's applied under that person's name for maybe the 10th time? What do we do then?
It's very unlikely that's going to... I mean, really, if they're 16 and 17, they are still classed as a child, so it would
I'm
likely to
just
be
thinking
children's
about the Rotherham
services.
scenario, it was quite unlikely that that was going to happen, but it kind of did. So just what protections have we put in place for that sort of thing not to happen?
That's the package that we've got basically. So from the Suffolk judgment and all of that is what's been created through this. So we've got child in need assessment as the first port of call. Then we look at all of the support that goes in place. Ideally, we'd look for supported accommodation first and not our own stock. If we have to use our own stock, then the support package is all put in place before that person moves in.
Right.
Otherwise, we leave that person in temporary accommodation, which is obviously we've got support in until we've got that.
And we would keep a register of people who are possibly...
Yeah, well, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
If we are housing the 16 and 17-year-old, they are far, far safer than the 16 and 17-year-olds that are out in the private rented sector. We wouldn't be housing any 16 or 17-year-old that isn't already known to children's services. And
Yeah,
would be, so
I know, yeah, I
actually
understand
they're
that.
probably more likely
But
to be
a
getting
lot of the
more-
kids from Rotherham were in children's services care, and I'm just trying to think, we don't really want that kind of thing being perpetuated down here, and we've not got our eye on the ball with maybe a guarantor, not necessarily there's the same name coming up, but a guarantor that's got an address. Are we gonna make sure that we are not allowing exploitation going on under our noses?
Well, we would do that anyway.
Things in place to
I
make
mean,
sure that happens.
Yeah, I mean, we can only do to a certain level. Children's services have the responsibility that it is a child.
We
at
are
the end
giving
of the
them
day.
the tenancy though.
Yeah, but they have the responsibility, if they're the guardian, for the safeguarding.
Right.
You know, we don't manage safeguarding. We can put as much support in as we can, but ultimately it's their responsibility. They are the carer.
I'm talking about from the tenancy point of view though, not I'm probably not making myself clear, so let's, yeah, anyway.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
We do work very closely with...
I've got to
Yeah,
say,
I'm just-
okay, I mean, I've been to quite a few of the shops, but I would say the younger people, there's very difficulty of actually allocating to young people and what we are. But I'll give them the due that the fact is, we did it along Terry said when we brought them in, we ought to have somebody to guarantor. It worked out a lot of it is when we wanted to give young ladies, when they'd had children and they
Yeah.
weren't all there, or they were not quite, I never have to pronounce this, not, got an illness or stuff. And we said we would put them in, but we wanted to guarantor to look there, but because we wanted to give them a life and a proper thing to be. And that's been with us a long time. What
Yeah.
we've done, seem to have done now, is we've added a bit, try to get it a bit more clear, but it's all the laws and different things that's coming in.
From my perspective, what I'm thinking is we're not giving the tenancy to the 16 and 17-year-old, we're giving the tenancy to an adult who is standing for the 16 and 17-year-old. So are we going to make sure that that adult is doing that for a genuine reason, because
Yeah, I-
we are dealing
yeah.
with the adult, not the child. The safeguarding of the child is for another agency, not us. Are we making sure
I think
we're giving the tenants the right-
indirectly, I don't think we're allowed to do it, are we?
Claire,
Is to,
Claire, do you
to
mean,
monitor people.
do you mean, are we going to check the adult out
Yeah.
Are we
properly?
going to make sure that there's no reoccurring?
The adult hasn't asked for many properties.
Yeah,
Or-
or are we
yeah.
giving the tenancy
Oh,
to different
I'm
names?
with you now, I can answer you now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
we-
if we
basically-
basically
would
one address,
Yeah.
are we
Yeah.
Oh,
going to make
yes.
sure that
Yeah.
the tenancy is going to the right
So
place?
what we would do under that circumstance, anyone that's 16, 17 has to go through the homeless route to be able to qualify. So we've got a risk assessment that goes within that. So if it's a parent that's evicting, for example,
Yeah.
we wouldn't be saying to that parent, you're a responsible guarantor, you've
Yeah.
just evicted.
Mm.
You know, we would have to find a suitable person to be that guarantor, but that's done through the homeless side of things. So
Right,
that's
it's
what
just,
happens.
I just think, you know, especially today, we need to be aware of people who actively seek out children in those positions and groom them
Yeah.
and pretend to be the adult, the responsible adult, when actually they've got really nasty ulterior
Yeah, no, we
motives.
wouldn't.
Are we going to keep an eye on that and make sure that doesn't happen in our properties under our
Yeah,
noses?
we would do that
Yeah.
through the homelessness.
Right, that's what.
I'll give them credit over the years, they do, the officer in the housing have been pretty strict on what they do when people go in with, and staying within the law that you've got to be careful how you treat whatever. But I will give it as one that normally have been a pretty, really keeping things in order and making sure everybody lives properly and okay.
John, you can call me John. No, Chairman, I was just going to point out that 443 in this report, I think, summarises the whole position that we've been discussing. I think it's an excellent summary of the route which you deploy to ensure that people are safeguarded and just basically in a sound
Yeah.
position.
And I think it's good for the
Yeah,
younger
absolutely.
people, because there's always a difficulty. You can put them on our housing list, and you try and find where the property where we can actually put them in to run their own
Yeah.
properties. It really is limited, but yes, Councillor, yes.
I was going to mention the other thing of a lot of homeless people who've had troubled backgrounds is their connection to a particular town. If they don't know anyone in this town or whatever, they may have parents that split or all sorts of things. And if they're connected to multiple towns, their father was in rugby and their mother was in Nuneaton or whatever, there's lots of things where people could actually have a connection and an issue with several places.
Yeah.
And how does that work in terms of who's looking after them? And also the contrary, if we do give a place to a 16-year-old, if they then disappear off, how do we actually check they are still living there and needing it?
Yeah, so the first part of it is under homelessness, we have to look at where we're going to discharge the homeless duty to. So we look and see if you've got several connections, then we look at which is the strongest connection and check out what support is going to be in that area. Because just having relatives in an area might not mean that that's a connection at all, So we would check that out first, and then we can discharge our homeless duty into whichever area is most suited to that young person. And the second part was...
If a young person does get a home,
that's done under the
but then they just
safeguard.
disappear off, is there any checking?
I mean, usually the package of support could be through, obviously, children's services or a support agency. So if they're giving 2 or 3 hours a week, for example, so it depends what the package is, then they would be checking residency, welfare checks, that sort of thing. So if that person does go missing, then we refer it on to safeguarding through MASH, basically, through children's services.
Okay. You want to come back?
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say is, would we engage a partnership of sorts with the likes of Doorway?
Yeah, well, you see, Doorway offers support, but for their 16, 17-year-olds, it's rooms in shared houses.
Yeah.
So we work closely with them.
Oh, but they would support one of our
float.
tenants in
Yeah.
125.
Yeah.
Christelle has been very close to that department.
We work very
over the
closely.
years,
Yeah, I
haven't
do
they? Yes.
comment to Doorway.
Okay.
Yeah, do
Carry
you want
on.
me to move on? Right.
And you
Okay, so
thought
we've
you
got...
were gonna be easy.
trying to be quick. Right, well, we've got exclusion to unacceptable behaviour. At the moment, we've got exclusion for a 12-month period. That's causing us quite a few problems because generally people that are in prison would come out on licence. So they're coming out on licence to probation hostels, and they could be in that probation hostel for over that 12-month period and monitored with curfews of when they can come in and out of that property. So what we want to do is strengthen this really to make sure that anyone we're housing can show us that they can live independently without restrictions of those types. So we want to extend it for 24 months just so that they can prove to us that they can live independently, they've not got any pending convictions and that they've improved their behaviour for us to house.
Any comments? Okay, no, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Move on. Right, welfare reform. 2015 we changed the allocations policy to look at welfare reform. So we advertised 1 in 4 properties for people that wish to downsize their property, as long as they've got no arrears and the property's to a certain condition. We haven't seen a lot of move around from that because it's restricting people really. So we had quite an influx to begin with, and now, for example, we've only got 4 people on the list that are looking to downsize. They're in 2 and 3 bedroomed houses, which obviously we're absolutely desperate for. So we're restricting their movement. So what we would like to do is incorporate that into the main policy to say that anybody that wants to downsize can bid for any property, and they would be placed in a high band so that we can get some move around going to free up the 2 and 3 bedroomed houses.
Yes, Councillor?
On a related matter, you talk about downsizing. The other thing that's happened at Cleaver Gardens, and it probably happens at other places, is people actually want to stay in the same building but move downstairs as they get older and less mobile and things. So obviously that doesn't actually take up any more of our flats. It just it just shuffles them around.
Yeah.
But that doesn't be anywhere in the policy to actually let people.
It's all done on need, you see. So basically, if they're in an upstairs and they need ground floor, they would have to prove the need of why they need that ground floor, and then they are put in quite a high priority band. If they've got the need, then they can't cope where they are.
But say if you have it so it works quite easily, and people say, because people do want to live in the same part of Nuneaton. I mean, no matter how good or bad a particular part is, whatever, that's their home. And yet, to actually try and have something where there is some priority to actually try and keep people with their friends in the same area, rather than just go into the generic banding of...
It is, I mean, choice-based settings is just that. They have the choice to bid where they want to go. So as long as they prove the need to us, whatever we get, and we band them according to their need, they bid for that property within that area themselves. So we can't pinpoint a specific area for a specific group just because they live in there.
But of course there could be somebody else that's got a slightly higher need, that needs ground floor, that might get that property, and that other person that wants to specifically just stay at Cleaver might have to wait a bit longer because their need wasn't as great.
So the alter, because they live there, doesn't weigh anything.
No, it's
Yeah.
all
It's
done
just
on
on
what the
need
need
and what
is.
they're,
Yeah.
whatever. Okay, and anyone else? No?
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I'm nearly finished. Advertising cycles. So we did a lean review of the voids process, so the end-to-end time, and obviously choice-based settings was included in that. And what we realised is by advertising on a weekly cycles, the properties were sitting waiting with us to go on advert on average for a 6-day period. So what we've trialled is advertising properties on a daily basis to try and speed the process up a little bit. So that's worked really well. Everyone seems to have managed with that fine. And just to give you an idea on the savings that we could make on that is obviously a lot of people might be in temporary accommodation if they're homeless. So the average night in bed and breakfast is £67. In our temporary accommodation it's £25. So, you know, by getting them into council accommodation quicker, we're getting the rent quicker and we're saving on those temporary accommodation fees. So overall, from the people we've got in temporary accommodation at the moment, as a snapshot, that would give us a saving of about 10,000 just because of advertising on a daily basis rather than a weekly. So we would like to proceed with that and advertise daily.
Yes,
Because one of the other things was advertising, rather than waiting for the void to be totally painted, redone, is actually knowing it's going to be done a few days and sort of pre-advertising, by dare say.
We advertise on notice now, so basically as soon as we get, it's still tenanted, as soon as we get something in to say, then we've got that period then to...
And Jeff, mate, you also had just one or two strange properties that were like empty for like 10 years or something silly. Are they still sitting on the books?
Yes, but they're they're old. There's a couple that have been empty a very long time that are old bed sits in, I think it's Alvin Freeman Court. A couple of older schemes where yes, they've been empty a very long time.
But we are paying council tax on them for the last 10 years.
We will be paying not yet.
because normally,
I mean,
Alma Freeman, when we did it, but we were struggling to let Alma Freeman out, if you remember, people didn't want to go up there, whatever, because most of them were single beds and that. What we did was we decided and made the decision that we would build them together, knock them into one, so they became bigger, and when people agreed, we knocked them in, and then we spent money on and painted them and done it up for them on their acceptance up there, because it was difficult to let up there, a lot of things were happening. But they have moved, because this is a nice complex, I think, it is up there. It's nice and that there are still going to be some that people go, oh, there's not enough room or there's nothing next to it where you could knock it into to make it bigger, to make it operate, you know. Because we have got quite a few bed sits knocking about throughout the borough, haven't we, really? It's a shame we can't have enough money to knock a few more in between.
But Jay, if we let it for the rent of £1 a month, and they paid the council tax on it would actually save the council money.
The age that it is still an independent living scheme, so we'd still need to, people would still need to be 50. Well, I mean, the age dropping to 55 might actually fill up some of these
something different, yeah.
But we can't really be putting other people into those schemes when there's still older people in them.
As much as you care, I don't think you can go out. If we've got policies in what we do, then we stand by the policy. Because once you go out and set a precedent, you're in chaos. Because then people will start quoting you and doing what, although much we wanted and don't want to delay. That's my view. I think once you do it, you can set a air running that's, you know. Although we agree that let's find a system how we can let it go, and I'm sure they're working the system to try and do that. But it is. Once you go out of system, there's so many people who check and watch housing so closely that if you do something that's not out, they quote you and say, well, you've done that on that one, I know that, why aren't you doing it on that? And suddenly you get, but there you are, I'm not trying to justify what they're doing in that, well, we are in a way, because we all work with this authority. But it is a difficulty, and I'm sure if they can find them, they will. But, I mean, if you've got suggestions at the end, I'm sure we can take them on board and let them go and have a look. So, yes, please.
My last one's a very quick one. It's just basically about the housing register review, because we're having a new system. At the moment, the system is an email to review your application, and then they give basically a 28-day period for you to say that you still want to be on the list. If you've not gone into your application at all, and then it's cancelled. So because it's done through email, people lose email addresses, you know, that sort of thing. So we're basically changing that system to make sure that it's done through their preferred communication, so whether it's email or letter, and it's the same sort of thing. But the only difference is at the moment we've got no control. That part of it is owned by Housing Partners, who's the system administrator. We will have the control to manage those accounts, so that if we've got vulnerable categories, for example, that might not have been into their application, we can make sure that those applications aren't cancelled. So it is just about us having more control, really.
Members, any comments now? Yes.
I'll just get that's positive. I mean, I've got some residents who actually haven't got a computer. They're very, very much in need of people helping them. So the more we can actually make sure that we keep these people on the list.
Yeah, I mean, going by the recent STAR survey, it evidenced actually that people did want to be communicated via letter more than email anyhow. But I think one of the issues you've got within the authority is that people change their email addresses so often that it can cause issues for the authority to contact that person. I mean, for instance, we've got a member on our group that changes his email every other week. You know, I don't know which one he's on. I've got about 20 of them. So I think one of the things is it's also got to be the prospective tenant's responsibility to make sure they've got the correct information in front of the officers to know how to contact them. Because so many people just forget that. They change their mobile phone and the only form of communication they'd put on their application was a mobile phone. So, you know, we do need to make sure that when you do, there's an application going in, that people are really highlighting the fact you must be contactable on your preferred form of contact.
I've got to confess that, I mean, okay, we're councillors and they do send lots of our emails. That's what I've just had that much, because I'd rather have a letter. And I keep forgetting my email. I mean, I've just got to get Ryanair to do it and they'll give it to them. And they've had to send me a letter in now because I get the wrong one, so I've had them made, so I'm actually up to date. But I mean, I'd rather have it, but that's what it's about. Anyway, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I notice in 4.8.2 that you're reducing the period of time they have to reactivate their accounts at the following notice from 28 days to 14 days.
Then it's an extra 14 days on top, should be, so it's still the same 28 days, I think.
That's not exactly how it reads.
Oh, you stop. That's an error then. It's 14 days for the first, and then another 14 days on top. That part hasn't altered.
So they will have 28 days
28
in total.
days. That bit's not changed at all, yes, so it's 28 days.
That was my concern,
Yeah,
Chair.
so, yeah.
And that is reflected in the policy. The policy hasn't got a typo in it.
Now. Yeah.
Just as long as that amendment is made in the policy to make sure it's absolutely
I'll check
correct.
the policy. That could be a typo error on there, so but I'll make sure it is.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
Yes, there was one other amendment that we wanted to ask or seek Scrutiny's views on, and that is to consider removing the age restriction on children in upper floor flats. And the reasons are twofold. Currently, we have an age restriction that means that any family with a child of 5 or under can't express an interest in a flat or a masonette that's above ground floor level. Used to be 8 and then we dropped it to 5. We have 48 homeless families in temporary accommodation and bed and breakfast accommodation currently in Nuneaton and Bedworth. And we have 6 or 7 upper floor 2-bed masonettes that are classed as difficult to let because you can't occupy those flats unless you've got children or you need 2 rooms because you're impacted on by welfare reform. So if we were to lower the age to 0 and allow people by choice, not forcing anybody, but if we were to allow some of those families that might have a 4-year-old and might actually consider moving into an upper floor masonette, then not only will it help house that family, but it will also, we'll get rent from a difficult to let 2-bed masonette. That is an option that we wanted to look at.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I remember when we considered this last time at the committee, and it seemed a bit illogical to me at the time, but I was willing to go with a middle way through, which was instead of going from 8 or nothing, reducing it to 5. But I think what you've just highlighted there illustrates the illogical nature of the policy, that we've got people who are homeless. We have people who, if they're in the private sector, could just do exactly what they wanted. What would you do if someone who was living there in this maisonette then got pregnant? Would you say, oh no, you've got to move out because we have a policy of not having 5-year-olds in there? So you're going to force someone who gets pregnant when they're in there to move. You'd struggle to get that one passed. At the end of the day, there's only so far the state can and should intervene with children and parenting opportunities and people's choices. And the more I think about this and the start facts you've given us today, I'm actually willing to formally move that amendment, because at the end of the day, it is a parent's choice how they parent their child. So long as they are not breaking the law, they are not mistreating that child, then the state should have very little role in how someone parents their child.
Yeah.
And this smacks a bit too much of nanny state to me. They have good intentions, but I think perhaps in the modern day, those intentions don't stack up to modern living. So I'm willing to support that proposal and move that amendment to the policy chair.
You're seconding that, eh?
I think, yeah, from a personal perspective, I grew up in a tower block for the first 3 or 4 years of my life, so it never did me any harm. And to be honest, if that kind of legislation or whatever you want to call it was in effect in Salford, pretty much nobody would get a home to live in. But I mean, you've also got to look at, we let 2-storey houses out to families. Well, what's the difference between the second floor of a house where invariably you can have children's bedrooms to a masonette? There's no real difference. People would need to take personal responsibility for themselves, like Councillor Wilson said. It's parenting choice is a parent's choice, as long as they're not doing anything untoward to injure the children, or they are looking after the child properly. We can't see people on the street when we've got homes that they could be living in. I don't think it's fair to do that to people, really. So, yeah,
Chris?
I'll probably get burned at the stake, but yeah, I agree with it, because I can't see as we should be putting any age restrictions on anything, really. Same as I don't believe that we should have a 55 plus or things like that. You go to pubs, clubs, and old and young people mix together, fine, and live together. And if we've got 10-year-old properties that haven't been let, let's mix it up a little bit. I think we should go along with what's been suggested.
Me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. The only concern I've got, because I agree that it should be 0, you know, they should be allowed in. The only thing that there should be stipulations within the tenancy, because I'm just worried that, you know, it is choice-based letting, somebody or a homeless situation. As long as they don't turn around and say, well, you stuck me up here and my child went down towards the stairs and fell down them. So, you know, I'm just worrying that you know, you make... I know, but you need, the people are going to say, the council stuck me up here and my little 4-year-old got out my front door and ran down the stairs and fell down them. And so my concern is that, you know, it needs to be within the contract that, you know, yeah, they should look after their children, but I'm just worried that people are going to say, oh, but you put them up there and that poor child.
We would make sure it's their choice at the end of the day.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so homeless applicants, we can bid on their behalf,
That's
but
right,
generally
yeah.
homeless applicants bid themselves.
That's
you know,
right,
there isn't
yeah.
any properties that they, and we wouldn't enforce if a homeless family come up with their 2-bedroom stairs and they said, I really don't want to, my child's got ADHD, say for example,
Yeah.
we would assess the risk and we wouldn't make that an offer if it wasn't suitable.
But I'm also going to then bring the other side in it, because I know tenants that live below the people that you've put upstairs, and little Johnny's put on his mum's high heels and running up and down the balcony, driving the person that lives downstairs mad. I just think you need to be aware of that, because that's happened before as well.
Yeah.
So.
I think we've got to weigh it up.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, when you turn around and you're saying you've got 7 homeless families, or you know, property's empty and you've got homeless families there, put them in, put a roof over their head. You know, I've got no issue with the age limit. I'm looking about what people are going to come back to me and say. And number one is, oh, but my little Johnny got out and went down the stairs and fell down there. That was the council's fault because they put us there.
Yeah.
Or the other side of it is that you've got the older person living below, but little Johnny upstairs running around.
They didn't say
Then
Tim
it's a-
McCann's, did they?
Councillor, go on.
Yeah, I think we have to do it. I think we have to do it sensibly and carefully. We need to have the policy or the thing they get to say, this isn't an ideal thing, yeah, you accept it knowing the risks or whatever. So and I think we also need to just put some money in just to do some health and safety checks on some of these places, because when I've been delivering leaflets, yeah, some of our sites are far from ideal in terms of the staircases and where, yeah. And if they're adults, you think, well, that's not a problem having adults up there, because if they fall down, So I think it is good to do it, but we do need to be careful.
Health and safety is a standard assessment that's carried out on all of our estates for everybody that lives in the flats, because there will be people in upstairs flats now with children or visiting grandchildren, so health and safety is just a part and parcel, standard part of planned maintenance and estate inspection.
Yeah, but unfortunately we can't redesign our if things were designed in the 1970s, there are certain things you can't easily fix. You can't put new staircases in.
I'm one of the old school, and I was one of the councillors sitting on housing 20 odd years ago when we went through all of this, and we did it very deliberate, and I tell you, a long debate went on about us moving the age up to 5, then we moved it up to 8. They were even talking about doing it up to 12. Because of the total unsafety of the children running about along at the top there, and the first time somebody gets hurt up there, there's going to be hell on. We deliberately done this, and there were some old councillors who stood and helped build the housing stock in here, and we didn't just do it flippantly to do this. And just because we're being told that we've got 3 or 4 families that's homeless and we want to move in, we should then disregard safety and everything else where the flats are concerned. And we, as I say, we went for hours and hours and hours deliberating this one. I know, okay, there are people now, we've moved on and, life changes. And just to say somebody should have the freedom to do what they like with their children, I don't think that's an answer. This is personally, no, I'm not the chair. Personally, I don't think that's an answer that you should do that. We have a responsibility as a councillor, as tenant and our property, that we make sure everything that we do is in the interest of the people and the safety of the people that use our properties. It's a matter of opinion again. We'll all have a view whether it should, is it safe, is it not safe or that. And the one thing that it's not there, it is just mine, the way the committee is going to talk, they're going to recommend it, but I'm not going to sit here and not put my voice, because we fought very, very hard to get this age changed. And I really was against when we decided to come from 8 down to 5 again. And now we want to remove it from where we started of unsafe. And just for, I know it's not just 4, but because we've got 3 or 4 families that's homeless, we can just let it go. To me, it's unsafe. We do need age on there, and when they are, and you've just heard one comment being made, when they are running about up there and there's nobody there, seconds, and they can be over the top of that balcony or thing, and God help us if that child, if it is. One slip up, within seconds of a child, you've only got to take up sometimes off them, just seconds, and wow. And then the community come out and you say, but you're there, but I only did it a few seconds. It is totally unsafe to have none at all, and just to say the parents should go in there and they're the ones that do it. This is my view. Obviously the committee will make their own choice. Chris,
Tony, I'm not saying that we should change a policy just because we've got some homeless people. I'm saying that I don't think the policy is right for today. There is no. I used to work on rig, and when we was told by the Americans that if we got struck by lightning, that was our fault because we was in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was on a metal rig in the sea, and it'd be our fault because we was in the wrong place. Health and safety can only go so far. We can only do what we can do. The flats that we've got have got to be up to a standard. They must be up to that standard. If the parents can't look after the kids, then parents need looking at, to be honest. The policy needs changing. I would say though, because I missed this earlier, is the coming back to the exclusion due to unacceptable behaviour. Perhaps there's something there that we could do on the acceptable behaviour. If the kids are running across in high heels and what have you, perhaps kid needs looking at, but if they're constantly doing that, and then perhaps we should be looking at that family and going around and saying, look, this has been going on for 6 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop it or else you're out. I just think there's only so much we can do. If the people that want them places, then let them have them.
Just on an evidence base,
Then John.
we obviously let houses to families. How many children have we had falling downstairs in 2-storey or 3-storey houses?
We don't let them.
Because by that token, really, everybody should be in a bungalow. I know that not everybody is in a bungalow. That's why we've got these properties that need letting. So, I mean, there is, I've got a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, and my little lad, sometimes you can't, you know, you try and find where you can take the batteries out because he's that full on. But that's my responsibility to deal with that, and I wouldn't allow him to, if we were anywhere, I mean, you know, if we've been away somewhere or anything like that, I wouldn't allow him to be disruptive, so much so to people who are surrounding us, or by if there's a balcony or anything unsupervised. You shouldn't let your kids out there unsupervised. It's parental responsibility, and I think we do, you know, there is a bit of nanny state, a little bit too much, where people do need to kind of take responsibility back in and accept responsibility, and they can't blame the council for absolutely everything that goes wrong, and we can't see people. I know they do, but there's got to be a line of demarcation where you say, actually, this is your responsibility. We will open this up to people, but this is then, from this point on, is your responsibility. And we could deal with the noise complaints as noise complaints. We've got legislation and things in place for that. Anyway, we could deal with it down that route. It's just about dealing with it in a slightly different way. But I don't think we should see, and then it's not necessarily families, it's just, I don't think we should see people without a roof over their head when we've got roofs that they could be there. I mean, I'm sure that somebody with kids with no house would prefer to have their child in a bedroom, in bed, not in a hospital. And I think if the payoff, if the thing that they have to do to get that is to make sure that their child is safe, then that's ultimately what they're trying to do anyway, is to give their child a safe environment to live in. So I wouldn't have too much of an issue with putting children in anything with stairs, basically. But we would have to make sure that there is an agreement with the parent that actually there is certain bounds of responsibility that as a parent they've got to have for their child, and if they're going to let their child run up and down a balcony, then that's not something that we can control.
The problem with that, I know, you know, I'm not going to, everybody has a right to speak and say how they feel. Just proves to me somebody doesn't understand the life of flats and people living in our flats and over there. Because it doesn't work simply because somebody makes a noise, and it certainly doesn't work simply because the kids running up and down. Officer time we ain't got, and it doesn't work. They do go out and they try and check it. They do go out and try and make sure that when they can. But my God, a lot of it ain't. Let's talk real world out there when you're in the block of flats. I mean, all councillors, I don't care who they're sitting in here, have had problems with flats and people who are living in flats. I think it's ideal to give people a roof over there, but sorry, it is unsafe to lower the age for down to 5 in the flats. And because, like you say, you control your 4-year-old, but if it was in a block of flats, and when the door is open, and you just walked into the kitchen and the lad was running straight out and hit that balcony over the top, within seconds, and that's the danger of control. That's why we did it 2 years ago. We tried to get to a reasonable age at 5, and even then we thought it was out, but we felt it was reasonable then because we wanted people to apply for the come into the flats. We went higher, which we did, which I wasn't totally agree, because if you kept it 5, people would offer that, you know, come to go in the flats, but they would look after the children. Anyway, that's my view. John and then Chris.
Chair, I'm just wondering what experience tells us about the move from 8 to 5. Do we get involved in any sort of legal or litigation issues? And it does strike me, having some masonettes in Bolkington, and having gone up and down the stairs, children on those stairways, there's only one handrail, and it does strike me as being not too safe. So given that we've led them to adults and we expect adults to behave differently, just walking down with using one hand as opposed to the other off a reasonably wide stairway, it just seems a little bit dodgy to me. And I think if a family is putting a masonette upstairs, then there should at least be some survey done and possibly stick an extra handrail up and just give the kids a chance on either side of the stairway of maintaining a grip on the handrail.
Welcome to Mount Pleasant Flats. Yes, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. I think what we have to recognise in this debate is that both sides are coming from honourable viewpoints. It's all about the child and making sure that we do the right thing. But the Chair mentioned about living in the real world. Well, let's look at the real world. There are children out there without homes. We have places where we can put them, but our policy doesn't let them. In the real world, there are people who let out flats, both private and registered social landlord, which don't have these restrictions on. And I work in a court service and I see different types of cases which come through. The most times when kids are suing the council tends to be when they've tripped over a paving slab outside in the town centre or something like that. They don't tend to happen like that, and I would suspect, from most of my experiences, most of that sort of stuff isn't because they've slipped over in a council bungalow or a maisonette, sorry. It's because of there's actually systemic faults with housing which we don't appear to have. In the real world, other councils, and I'd be interested to hear from our colleagues about what our neighbouring authorities do. I would suspect, because I haven't heard about neighbouring authorities having age limits, and the answer appears to be a no from the shaking of the head from Sharon.
No, I've checked the neighbouring allocations policies and they haven't.
So in the real world, other areas are doing it. So I come back to the fundamental principle is, why are we the last bastion of 1970s, 1980s thinking? At some point we've got to come into the 21st century and recognise the 21st century problems. This isn't a panacea, but it is part of a solution to help certain people. And those four families, and these four families are important. And I know that you shouldn't just change a policy for four families, but at the end of the day, those four families are in need, and there'll be another four families, and another four families, and another 7 families in time. Let's do the right thing and give them an opportunity. It's a choice. They don't have to take it, Chair.
Matter of opinion whether it's the right choice, but that's yours and you have the right to say that. Yes. And then we'll call it a day and we'll call it a day and I'll take the vote.
It's just something that was mentioned before, but what do we do with people who are already living in first floor and above accommodations and they do get pregnant, and do they continue living there?
Yeah.
So we do have that sort of situation, it's just that we are not putting them in that sort of situation. It happens after they've gone in.
Yeah.
So we don't have any problems with them being in there after the fact.
No.
Right, okay.
Julie, you wanted to put your hand up, comment?
I just wanted to, it's a fascinating debate that you're having, Chair, and I don't want to interfere with the debate at all. But I do deal with families who are in ground floor accommodation, perhaps bed sit, ground floor accommodation, and they become overcrowded. This is just another example of a problem. They want to move into 2-bedroom accommodation. Perhaps they've got pregnant, as has been said, while they've been living there. Their family has expanded. And at the moment, if a 2-bedroom place is possible, empty, available, they cannot bid on that property because our policy doesn't allow. So I think that would free up potentially then smaller properties for people who actually need smaller properties. So I just think it's worth considering. I think the debate has been well informed. It's obviously your decision how you do it, but I just wanted to say that as a councillor, I'm often approached by people who are desperate to not be as overcrowded as they are, and that's a potential benefit, although I accept some of the comments that have been made about some of the potential difficulties.
Thank you. My view, comment is not at any cost, not at the safety of the children. Well, that's me coming from the older school. But anyway, we've debated this excellently, and a good debate. Everybody has their view on how they feel it should do. And it's been placed in front of us for their recommendations of scrutiny. We grant the recommendation that has been placed in front of us from the officers that we remove the age of 5s and we allow the officers to deal with the situations as they come to them to allocations.
Does that have to go to the Cabinet because we're not a decision-making body, or does it go to...
Well, wherever we go, it always goes when we come from here, we just make a recommendation. Is there an amendment to that? I move that it remains. Is that seconded? I didn't think it would be. All those in favour of the recommendation, please show. Okay, and against? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. That'll be the recommendation that goes forward. Thank you very much for the debate. Right, have you...
I've finished now, thank you very much.
Well, you say you've finished, yet your report goes to page 71. Okay, I'll just, as I say, I don't know whether all this, we've got lots and lots of pages and that, but you've answered most of them, got involved in them. And you want to that we...
I just wanted to, at the beginning of that report, they were asking us to note it and any comments to be taken back to the portfolio holder.
Yeah.
So I was just wanting that so we could note that was the case.
Yes. That's fine.
Now, I will ask the question, because the question posed to us, well, I send it back to the portfolio. What about it going back, our recommendation back to Cabinet? Why, I thought that's what we did. I thought that once this recommendation from this league goes, would be recommendation to Cabinet to accept that term.
Because it's a draft report, the comments made by the panel and the additional recommendation will be included in that report, and that report will go to Cabinet.
No, could go to single member decision.
This is a draft. This is a draft report.
Yes.
And my understanding of scrutiny is that any comments you may wish to make about it go back to the portfolio holder for consideration to be included into the final report that then goes to Cabinet.
Okay, thanks. Okay, we understand how that.
Is that okay?
Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it is. That's what we'll do.
Chair, just wanted to clarify, I don't know whether this report's actually due to go to Cabinet or a single member decision. Some reports actually are taken as single member decisions and some go through to Cabinet.
I'm sure
just
at
to
the end of the
clarify,
day,
it depends on whether it's over the threshold.
I'm sure at the end of the day the right thing will be done on the portfolio.
I'm sure officers
because members then have the right to come to the single member decision as they do going to Cabinet. So I'm sure it'll end up on at the right place. But the recommendation, wherever it goes, is what is accepted. Right, we're now on.
Item 8.
Right, now 71, page 71, and that is the Directed Housing Strategy, 1720. Who's that one?
Me.
All the best to you.
Yes, thank you. I'm not going to test you on any of the content. But I hope you enjoyed reading it as much as Don and I enjoyed putting it together. Right, so basically, although local authorities no longer have a statutory duty to produce a housing strategy, Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council has always had one since that legislation changed. And we have always taken the view that in order to support the borough plan, the corporate plan, the community plans, we need a document that informs our stakeholders, developers, partners, neighbouring authorities and residents just exactly what the housing needs of the borough are and what we would like to see in the future for the council, for the borough. So that's basically the background. So the intention was that it would be a brief document summarising the economic situation in the borough, the housing needs, and the type of properties that we need, the national legislation, local policies, that type of thing. As we started putting it together, there was so much information actually that we came across that we use. Certainly we use in terms of responding to planning applications and applications from support providers and stakeholders, that it was really useful to have it in this document, so that anybody wanting to develop in the borough or provide any sort of housing related support in the borough has somewhere to go to read about the borough's situation, socio-economic situation, demographics, population, all that type of thing. So, you know, I'm sure you don't want me to go through it page by page. I hope you've read it or most of it, and there might be some parts of it that are more of interest to you than others, like about the health and wellbeing situations and about vulnerable people. But what we've done is produced it into chapters, and then at each chapter we've made a pledge. So it's not a strategy where we've got a big action plan with lots of targets to report back on. It's basically a document that says this is where we're at in Nuneaton and Bedworth, this is where we aspire to be, these are the issues that we have and the challenges, this is what we know about our borough, and we've made pledges which we've summarised in the report about keeping stakeholders aware of current legislation, we're planning to complete a council house stock condition survey. We've got a mandate to build again on HRA land, which we intend to do during the life of this strategy. So that's it really in summary. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Right, I've been looking at the borough plan for the last 11 years it's been developed, looking at population stats and gone to the inquiries in Coventry and places where they've been talking about population housing growth.
Okay.
Over the last couple of years, the economy in Nuneaton hasn't grown this astronomical way like it has, and we've been losing working age population. A lot of the young people go to university. There's been a big issue with the change in the structure of the population, and we've got more over 65s, but the working age population has been shrinking. On page 82, you've got the population projections. These are really, really dated. You pull together a document from 2014-15, which is 2 years ago, and even then, that was then taken from some other document. The latest population projections are going to be a lot lower than this. And in 2015, the population growth was 145 in the borough. So they're now looking at the population in 2031 being 30-something thousand. So I do think we need to ground this in the really newest data, because otherwise we keep talking about this massive growth, and it's actually, I think you fail if you over-egg the problem, because we've got a problem even if we use sensible numbers. So I do think it's important to use sensible numbers. On the housing completions, I was a bit confused in your table where you said how many houses were completed, as terms of whether this was completed by the private sector or the non. Because you've got this bit with market houses and non-market houses.
Sorry, I'm just looking. What page is that?
I did fold the page corner over and I've lost my fold. But yeah, there is a problem with your numbers not tallying with the numbers in the 5-year supply from the planning policy.
Okay, it's a draft document. What I should have said at the start and failed, because I forgot, was that obviously there are some tweaking that's still needed in this policy and in this strategy. So anything you say, I can go back and double check. We have shared this with colleagues in planning policy, obviously Kelly, Catherine, etc. But we can certainly go back and make sure they're correct.
Yeah, I found that it's actually 123 pages, the housing completions table.
Okay.
And that's a lot lower. I mean, last year we built 400 houses, according to...
Yeah, this is affordable. Yeah,
but it then had market in, so that was what confused me. You had affordable housing and then you had a column for market housing. So that was
Yeah, but
that
they're it's
affordable.
market housing of registered providers. So this is HC. We need to make this clearer, obviously, and thank you for raising it. But this is about housing associations that have also delivered some market housing. It isn't about the general market, so we can make that clearer.
Yeah, so it'd be useful to sort of,
HCA.
yeah, so this excludes real market
Yes,
housing.
yes, it does. Yeah.
And the final point I really want to make is on page 108. You've got the conclusions that Kelly Ford and their team are pushing from the Borough Plan for 502 houses a year, which is obviously something that the people fighting the Borough Plan wildly object to, but also that's out of date because the housing assessment has been redone and redone again since, and the new version went to the Coventry local plan. So our demographic housing need is now in the 350 category.
Yeah, we'll make sure this is up to date, banged up to date. Some of these tables, we've been working on this document for quite some months, so some of these tables have been inserted quite early on and we'll need making sure they're absolutely correct before it goes into the final document.
Yeah, 'cause I'm really, yeah, our economy is tanking and I don't want us to build in the housing thing a model of what was supposed to happen, not what really happened. And I really do emphasise on this as well, the over 65s is where the population really is growing. And if we can get more in this strategy to actually force planning policy to actually have a housing target for the over 65s, because we keep building these massive estates in Wellington and maybe in Bedworth later on, and there isn't a clear thing that actually 2/3 of our increasing population are actually the older people that actually need the housing suitable.
Now, on that, the points that's being put forward, and you said that when we review it and put the thing together, it will be checked and done and put right. My problem, okay, it comes to scrutiny for us to check it and make sure and then recommend down back. But on the basis of what's just been saying, a lot of the information sitting in this report is not factual.
Well, I'm not. I need to go back and check it, don't I? It was always going to be a draft, as I explained to Shirley. It wasn't ready. It's not a final document. It always was going to be a draft.
So does that final draft? Does that final document then come back to scrutiny? Because the points that have been placed in front of you today, as you've agreed on that they needed to be done.
What I've said is I need to go back and check with
and
colleagues.
To make sure.
Check. It'd only be the housing numbers that would change. Yes. And if this was worked on months ago, and then they probably will have changed, and they probably will change again in the future. It's only the numbers. It's the actual wording in the document that's important. And as long as we agree on that, that's fine. Figures.
Yeah, we agree with that. I mean, as long as the document and the report that's been put together is factual and we're happy we're doing, that's okay. But I'm in agreement in the fact is if some of the figures have got wrong in that, this is a report that's being placed front of, so they both have got to complement each other in my view of what they're doing. But you are going to take it on board. You're going to check, and then obviously we'll take on board whatever.
Yeah, Coventry might say we've got to have another 10,000 houses. Yeah.
Because I think the numbers of houses is going to be with us from considerable time arguments. Chris, sorry, yes.
Thank you, Chair. On page 130.
130?
Yeah, 130. Well, page 57 if you follow the numbering of the document, but 130 of our agenda. It says list of consultees, and you've got this whole list here. Exactly what consultation is it? Is it envisaged to go out to consultation, this document, or are these people you've talked to in putting this document together?
Both. We have obviously consulted with some stakeholders and some internal colleagues, but this is a draft list of consultees that this will go out to, that's already been shared for their comments and their contributions, because there are other organisations out there that may feel we haven't included them in the strategy or that they want further information putting in, so we want to just make sure that they're happy with it.
So what is it envisaged to get out of the consultation? Because normally in the consultation you have a number of questions asked. Do you agree with them? Do you have anything to contribute, etc.? So what is the ultimate aim to get from the consultation? Because
The aim really is to ensure that they're happy with what the document is saying as they see the facts that are in there, and as stakeholders, as partner, neighbouring authorities or some of the developers, are they happy that what we've included in the document is as they see it?
and once it's gone out to formal consultation, is envisaged to come back to scrutiny after it's been consulted upon to see the revised version?
That wasn't the plan, but it isn't that type of consultation. It isn't a consultation that the document doesn't contain any sort of actions or proposals per se. It's more a document for sort of information with aims to support the borough plan and the community plan. So I'm quite happy to bring it back to scrutiny. If
You see, that's why I was confused about it going out to consultation, because if you aren't actually physically asking questions to get a reply, I was wondering about the purpose of the consultation, because also a number of these people here, like Rugby Borough Council, some of the other Warwick District Council, Stratford upon Avon.
Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that we already know they are challenging some of the evidence base in the borough plan, so that may have an impact on what is in your documentation here. So is this document at the appropriate stage, because we've got to wait for the borough plan to have a housing strategy in place to reflect the evidence base within the approved borough plan, whenever that may be, and also there might be other evidence which these people are submitting, and they are submitting, we know that, objecting to the principles and fundamentals underlying our borough plan. So I'm wondering if this is a fit for purpose document to go forward until we actually have the results of the borough plan with the final approved evidence base and the final say-so of where everything's going to go.
It isn't a document that is part and parcel of the borough plan. It's a standalone document. It's information that can be used to inform developers and stakeholders that are looking at the borough plan or that are looking at housing needs. But it isn't a document that's required statutorily to be in place as part of the borough plan.
I accept it's not a document which is statutorily required as part of the borough plan, but a lot of what you've put in here is underpinned by the borough plan. And until that's an approved form, signed off by the inspector and part of this council's formal policy, is this premature?
In my view, no, because this strategy expired last year. We could have completed this strategy. The strategy is only ever valid, really, or the information in it, from the point it's issued. And then the reason it's been delayed is because of the constant churn of legislation over the last 12, 18 months. So we started it, and then we had the budget and the changes to welfare reform and prolonged pulling it together a little bit. But then you have to reach a point where you decide you need to produce a strategy, produce the information about the borough as it is at this day, so for argument's sake, April 2017. And then in August 2017, there's a complete change in legislation, or there's a completely different local plan adopted, which will always be the case whenever this strategy is 5 years. So during that period, things change. If we wait for the borough plan, we've got a delay, and a further delay of a lack of information in one place for people to refer to that are looking to develop in the borough. This information is available in all sorts of different sources, from the Warwickshire Observatory, from the ONS. It is available, it is out there in all sorts of different areas if a developer really wants to look for it. This, pulling it together into one document, is really to assist those organisations, not just developers, but housing associations, the HCA, other stakeholders, support providers. So my personal view is that I don't think it needs to wait for the adoption of the borough plan, because quite honestly we don't know how long that is going to be. We can reference, we will reference in fact we have referenced the emerging borough plan, and we will double check that the figures in the tables are as accurate as they can be as at March 2017. But then what change, if the borough plan is then adopted later this year, early the following year, those figures could have changed again. But it will always be a potential change.
Well, if I may, Chair, I've asked my questions and I'll make my comments. My concern is this is labelled housing strategy. That therefore implies, and it will be, if adopted, a policy of the council. And when it becomes at that point, developers who are supposed to be pointed to it as guidance may assume that that is the policy as it will stand for until 2022. But we all know that the borough plan is supposedly in its final stages awaiting the inspection and could all change and would supersede this policy. I'm worried that we could be potentially putting the cart before the horse, because until the borough plan is in place, those plans are not set in stone and not ratified and approved. And it could be giving a misleading impression to those people it is intended to help, not deliberately, but could potentially give a misleading impression. I think that at this stage, there's a lot of good work which has gone into it, but it needs to wait until the borough plan is signed off and ready, because only then have we got the definitive answers. And so I'll be voting against moving this to go towards Cabinet on that basis.
I'm sure
I mean, my concern is of a similar vein, really, is that could one document be used to undermine the other? From somebody who may want to be, to manipulate a situation to their own favour, and, you know, developers or whatever, people that are interested in the housing market in the borough, if they aren't running concurrently, if they're not in conjunction with each other, if one has different data to the other, which one do you go for, which one do you refer to? And again, we know that there are, with the borough plan, we know that there are issues with other councils objecting to our borough plan. Could they use this to back up their objections? Would that then actually do us more harm than good to have these two documents that are supposed to be for the same for the same ends with two different sets of data? Again, it kind of concerns me that could end up being the case.
Councillor?
I think it's a very informative document, something that we can go out to people with and show them what we're looking for within this borough. So I'd recommend that we adopt what we've got in front of us. It's good to take the lead for a change instead of just follow the authorities. So I recommend that we adopt it.
I'll second that, Chair.
To me, the document is in the favour. It's okay for us it's being placed in front of you, because if there's alterations and the borough, we're using the borough plan again. The fact is, if there are alterations later on, 2 years or something down the drawing or whatever, if you've got a strategy, you will always change and observe and change the strategy as you do. It doesn't stand still. You've got to start somewhere, and I don't think this one would be used against the other one. And the people are arguing. Anyway, you wanted to have a chat on.
I was just going to say it might be worth actually just taking some stuff out that's controversial, that's actually not relevant, because this document had a lot of good stuff in it. So if we take out the bits that are controversial and leave those for the borough plan, because you don't need a lot of that background information, it might simplify things and make it less controversial. And on your consultees, it might be useful adding a few more of the groups interested in the older people, because I said, yeah, I think that's where we need to go, our housing, look after older people. So on the consultee list, there's not a lot about help the ages or age UK, or whatever they're calling themselves this week.
It just seems to me that this is just a supporting document that people can use. And, you know, you could turn around and open my purse and I've got £10.50, you could open it tomorrow and I've got £12.50, you know. All figures change on a daily basis. But as long as this is a supporting document relevant to anybody that's looking at it, if it's available for people to use it, why shouldn't it be there? It's something I would use. So.
If I could just clarify, we have mentioned in the document, as my able assistant has reminded me, that we have included the fact that during the life of the strategy, legislation does change, policies change, and these must be taken into account. So how we get round it now, when we're working with, if I'm talking to a developer now about what's needed, then although they're looking at the local plan or the historic local plan, they have to take account of new legislation and new policies, because strategies do become, or information becomes outdated as soon as it's published. And as long as we clarify that in the document, we can't then be taken to task by a developer that says, but you said such and such, when actually 2 years down the line that has changed. Because we pointed out that this will change and new information will have to be taken into account.
John?
Chairman, I have a feeling there's an underlying opposition to the local plan fueling some of this debate. For example, Councillor Condacor is not on the list of consultees, and the officer has responded as though he's speaking from authority. He has been in dialogue with the planning department for many years and has still failed to establish the case which he continually presents, that this borough's needs are different from that which they're basing the plan on. I think just to back up what the officers are saying, there is throughout this thing there are pledges, and each pledge it emphasises the fact. For example, the pledge I'm looking at on page 110. The local authority has a duty to continually assess housing need in the borough, and this housing strategy is our commitment to reviewing and monitoring housing needs, not least in order to keep our stakeholders informed and enable the appropriate delivery of housing types within its boundary. An annual review of progress in this regard will be conducted and reported to our scrutiny panel to ensure transparency and update members on changes. Now, if that isn't a moving target, I don't know what is. So I think any figures that are put in this document are subject to continuous review and report in a transparent way. And I don't think there's any need for us to be over anxious about what's in it, as long as the officers are being diligent and using the consultees which they are still listing in the back, which doesn't include Councillor Condacor. We can be ensured that this document will be reviewed, kept up to date and relevant to those people who want to use it.
Oh, sorry, my apologies, sorry.
So I think we should pass it and send it on.
I'm going to take a couple more because we've had a good debate and we'll come to a conclusion.
We've already had the discussion previously that you do accept that there is more work to be done on this, and there was the whole discussion about whether it comes back to us or not, or whether it goes somewhere else. Based on that, I'm not sure we can pass a document that we know needs work and actually needs to be re-reviewed.
What I meant by...
Yeah, sorry. The document can be passed in the statutory review because the paragraph that John has just read out has clearly stated to you that they will be changing, dates will be changing, figures will be changing, and it will be updated continuous. That's what the report is in front of you. Then, and then we're going to make sure we ain't going to get into any argument.
I have been mentioned the names, so I do want to reply.
I'm just going to bring out...
You're not replying to him an argument about whatever, because I'm not going to allow an argument. You either you're going to discuss the principle of what has been said to you in front of you.
People have accused
You may
me
not
of stuff,
agree.
I want to reply.
You will. Well, I'll be judging about what you do. Go on.
I'm just going under the thing of consultees that I am on there, but can you change it to resident partnership, not executive?
Can I just clarify a point on the recommendation was that the report be noted by Scrutiny. By more work, I really mean tweaking in terms of making sure that figures are accurate, because some of the tables in there were done some time before, just making sure we've included all of the stakeholders that we wanted to consult. There isn't going to be any major changes to it, but it wasn't quite
No, but
Polished.
if your base evidence is not correct, then you're building
I
the
don't
whole
know whether it
case
is.
on.
That's
what
I've
I'm-
listened to
Yeah,
council
that's the
conduct,
whole
and I
thing.
Yeah,
don't
but the
know.
whole thing, the officers clearly made it clear that the points that's been put forward to us will be checked and done out and put in a less order. Right,
I've said that I'll
yes,
recommend
it has been moved and seconded that the report be accepted. Oh,
Move
noted,
recorded vote.
noted. I think you've got down noted, haven't you?
Yeah.
Noted.
Can I move a recorded vote?
You
I'll
can-
second that.
You can move whatever you wish. I accept it. Well, no. What do we know? That's the first time it's been done, and I ain't got a clue what we do from now on. You're very lucky I'll let you do it, actually, because I've got to get the restaurant to agree. Is there enough in here?
Well, I'm obviously for it, ain't I? Because I recommended it, so I'm for.
So I'll go round the table as you've moved it forward. Chris?
For.
For. John? Oh, sorry, you.
We
You're not
non-voting.
John?
For?
Against.
Against?
For. So what we got?
Equal.
Equal.
The
So
chair's
it's mine,
casting a
isn't
vote.
it?
It's
So
your
four.
casting
So
vote.
it's
Casting
It's
vote.
yours.
So it's true.
Passed.
Well done.
Righto,
Common
that's done.
sense,
So we
right.
move on to the next, we're on page, we're on page 169, and that is the Economic Corporate Own School Scrutiny Powers Review Working Group. Chair was Councillor Watson. Well, sir, you're going to give us the,
Sorry?
what? Your report, sir.
Your report, you got
So, you're the chair.
Yeah, okay. The report is a report of cross-party working on scrutiny. And I'm open to questions on it. That's what I thought. I'll remove the report as it is. I'm open to any questions that you have for me. So,
Anybody wish to question the points, the recommendation? Are we on the, who's on the wrong one? I thought I'm on 10, where are we?
Did we do this one while on it?
Well, I've just read what you've written down here. Here it is. Oh, I've just gone to that one.
I know you have, but we were on.
Chairman, let's just do this.
Are we?
Right.
There's so many things, are you sure? Hang about then, well, we've now took the other,
Might as well let's go.
on page 169,
Yeah.
169, we'll go back to the other one in a minute. All right, 169, the report is in front of you, the Economic Corporate OSB Scrutiny Review report.
Second the
Right, Chris, give it.
recommendations, Chair.
You happy? You want a question?
No, I was going to second the recommendations,
Thank you.
Chair. I
It's
was
been
on it.
recommended, seconded.
Not happy with it?
Everybody happy with that report?
Follow.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for doing that. That was eight. I got one out. Now we go back to 132, page 132.
Oh, that's about it.
Oh, well, there's so many pages and... Right, 132, we got there. Whose is that one?
That's what we did it.
Nice one.
Right, whose is this one? Into performance report, third quarter. Audit agreement, mate. Whose is this one? Should we stop laughing and get on to this? Whose is this one?
Me.
Jane, get on with it.
What page number is this,
We're on
Chair?
page, well, you look at the
132.
You look at the unhappy
132.
faces, I think, don't you? You look at the unhappy faces, so,
So what page are they on?
page 139. No, not, sorry, page 141. 42, sorry. Page 142, this is the first one that is an unhappy face, is to do with private sector dwellings returned into occupation. I've asked, what I've done is asked the officers that lead on these areas to just give me an update. And Paul Coopy has informed me that the difficulty with bringing private empty properties back into use and private sector housing standards is that we do our utmost to persuade and assist and encourage and always use enforcement action as a last resort. So outcomes are difficult to control. Saying that, he informs me that we've had a major success recently where a property had been demolished after years of causing problems in Exhall, Davis Road, Exhall.
Yeah.
The private sector housing team worked with building control to enforce the provisions of the Building Act because of dangerous structures. And work is ongoing on a number of projects and loans are in progress, but ultimately we're reliant on owners delivering, and I think it can be quite a protracted process of tackling some of the private sector hazards. So that was his report on that. Recollection. Oh, sorry.
You on that?
Just a quickie, we did really well that the year before though, yes, it says 26. So, and one of the things that has been a distraction has been the travellers, which I think takes a lot of Paul's time up.
Yes, it does.
So we do need to know whether actually it's a lack of resources rather than just simply the fact that these things are hard to do. Because he was doing quite well in 2015-16. It's 16-17 where we've hit slowness.
Recollection. I've contacted Jo Robinson and her comments that should have gone into the box, they didn't get there in time, were that we have seen a 6% increase in the number of tenants in arrears as at December 16 compared with this time last year. The introduction of universal credit is a major contributing factor to this, and the team are continuing to actively recover as well as they can. But the increase in the number of tenants in arrears has meant a reduction in collection rates. Any questions? Is that me off? Were you
No,
timing me?
actually, they're trying to get me into church.
I thought it was,
In Bedworth than Life Church. I thought I'd turned it off, but they want me in Life Church or something.
it would take a lot to get you into church.
Oh, I've been going every Sunday now for quite a long time.
Have you?
Right, yes. What we on? What we doing?
Rent arrears.
Go on then.
It's also worth noting, Chair, and I don't know whether Jane's aware of it, but there was a recent Court of Appeal decision which has thrown a bit of a spanner in the works, certainly from the administrative side, which I'm responsible for, and also on your side, where they're now insisting that their lordships are insisting that on suspended possession order cases, a formal application has to be made before a warrant of possession can be issued. And it is causing a delay because normally you would just issue through the PCOL system, which enables the council to issue the warrants without having to delay any more. Now a hard application is required and it is causing some delays. We're turning it around as quick as we can from the admin side, but it's all dependent on judicial availability, so there is an inbuilt delay there now. The Civil Procedure Rules Committee is due to meet at some point to try and determine what they're going to do with the mess the lordships have got the system into, but that is going to see some delay in rent recovery, eviction and reletting the properties.
And then the reletting
You want to have a go at that?
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
No, you
I
must
apologise.
get used to every
sorry.
report,
No,
every item.
It was just in the chaos of the buzzers going off. You said 6% more in arrears. Is that an increase in the whole population, 6% more people in arrears, or has just a small number of people in arrears gone up by 6%?
6% increase in the number of tenants in arrears.
Yes.
So of 100 tenants, so of the tenants, there's been a 6% increase in the number of tenants that are normally in arrears.
Yeah. So what sort of size of number is that?
I've no idea.
Because it's useful to have
Yeah.
a number. Because if we've got 5,000 houses or flats, or whatever, and we have 3% of those normally in arrears,
Yeah.
so that's 3% of 5. You know what I mean?
I can
6%
get
of
that
3%.
Yeah,
information. I can get that information.
It gets difficult to work out. Are we
I mean,
talking 2 people or
I do
20
have,
people?
yeah, I
Which
do
is
have to add
0.18% the total.
that although we're seeing a lot of problems because of universal credit, that isn't to say necessarily that these tenants that are falling into arrears because of universal credit, it isn't really their fault at the moment, because the universal credit system and payments is very slow, and we've had lots of evidence from other authorities that actually the weeks that it takes for money to come through is delayed. So obviously the recovery team take account of that. We're not charging in on week 2 and you know, sending bailiffs in. We know that there are issues with the DWP and with the universal credit payments, but obviously for a period of time the arrears go up until that sorts itself out. And Sharon's got quite a lot of experience.
Because obviously for temporary accommodation as well, it's a 6-week delay at the moment.
At least. Okay. Voids, end-to-end time. We're a bit disappointed with the smiley face, with the unhappy face. With the unhappy face, because actually there's been a tremendous amount of work on voids over the last 12 months. This is a snapshot obviously of what the position was like last year to what it is now. Nicola and Matt have scrutinised these figures, and whilst we're reporting 59.13, again, we're not absolutely convinced that's the correct figure because of the data that's been going in to the system. I'm not blaming the computer, but I know it sounds as like I am. But I have to say that following the liens review that we did, and Sharon touched on it earlier in terms of the of relets, voids now are down to I think it's something like 23 days. 23 days for where there's no difficult to let. So take the difficult to lets out. It's on average taking 23 days from the point of keys coming in to us moving a new tenant in, which is really, really good. And even with difficult to lets, as I say, we're reporting 59.13, but I think it's slightly below that. It will, every time we let a difficult to let, so if we were to let Alwyn Freeman Court that's been empty for 2 years, it will spike the difficult to let figure. You know, that figure will, the average will be much higher. So we always prefer to look at take the difficult to lets out, the routine, run-of-the-mill, normal properties. It's taken us 23 days. So, and that's been a big improvement over the last few years, and obviously that it's an ongoing process. We're looking all the time at how we can improve that.
Can you not give us the data separately?
Pardon?
Can't you hard to let column and general?
Yeah.
Have them two separate.
Yeah,
I think I asked for that when I was doing
yeah, because that's how we always do it. We always ask for, so you want both.
Yeah.
Well, it's just easier than
Yeah.
all the writing to just see them, and then you can see what's happening with them
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah, no, that's,
You could have half
So
a
what
smiley
would-
face then.
yes,
So what would be
have a
the reason?
smirk.
So what would be the reason to articulate Alvin Freeman?
Sorry?
What's the articulate Alvin Freeman?
No, what I was just using that as an example because we've got some long-standing bedsits.
Oh, that's just,
Yeah, bedsits.
I'm just going to say for me, I think the problem's the difference between the mean and the median. It's always different averages. One average is massively swayed by one road big value.
Yeah.
And quite often they do upper quartile and lower quartile, or something that gives you a distribution.
Okay,
That's me finished, I think.
and that's in, anybody else want any further? Accept the input of us?
Just on these lets and the, I think sometimes we rush these houses to turn them round to get the rent back, and we don't do ourselves any justice because we let the houses and then we get nothing but complaints off the residents that have got in because there's things that are not right. So I'm quite happy with how quick we turn them around, to be honest. But on the difficult to lets as it is, I'd like to go and see some of these difficult to lets and see why they're so difficult to let, and perhaps do something more on promoting them, pushing them.
We've done a lot of the difficult to lets are in the independent living side of things, and it's because they are very, very tiny bed sits.
They are.
And that's the majority of the difficult to lets, other than upper floor, 2-bedroomed flats.
It is. They're all in support. All of the difficult to lets, bar 6,
Yeah.
are supported housing units.
And do you think with the lowering of the age limit that might assist?
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we're hoping so, yeah. And there is work, proposals in place to do what Councillor Lloyd mentioned earlier, looking at perhaps redesigning some of the redsits to create flats. But obviously that's got to be something that's built into the capital programme.
Right, thank you very much for that one. So,
Are we doing the risk register?
sorry?
Are we doing the risk register?
What's that?
On 32.
The other thing is to be patient. Then we just finish the report. Anyway, we've got the non-invasive risk registry. Do you want to go into it or deal with it? Okay.
What normally happens with a risk register? Do you normally go through it page by page?
I don't know. Well, I mean, it's in front of us. Normally, if members are ready to that's the item, they can pick an item up and that's doing it. Otherwise,
You just do the reds.
Which one? Which
Reds.
So which one?
Do the reds.
Do the reds.
Which one? Which are the red ones?
First one.
First
two.
one. Okay.
Can't see them on that black and white paper.
Oh, it's,
It's not in colour. Hence the
it
coloured
is
one.
in black and
Yeah,
white. It's in black and white.
Yes.
Do you want to say something on it or what?
Yes, please, Chair. I've just found out today, no one's told me, that the head of planning policy and economic development is leaving the authority. We've also got the other councils in Warwickshire all objecting to our borough plan. So this risk R2 about the delays in the borough plan is getting, I mean, you couldn't get more red. I mean, the mitigation is supposed to be owned by the head of planning policy and she's going. Every authority in Warwickshire is now objecting to our plan. And yeah, that is going to have a big impact on not just the economy but also housing. So I don't know if any officers want to comment.
I don't think we can without.
I'm sure,
None of you are planners, are you?
I'm sure
Yeah.
the directors have got it in hand.
We can take that away as a query and come back to you. But yeah, I don't think we can answer that.
Anybody else in the risk register? Okay, that's that. Thanks very much. Well, now it's we've got to go back to item 6, which is community safe performance quarter. It's all yours, I think, and then we go into.
I've got some colour ones.
We've got some coloured ones.
Those of you that mock me.
We normally get coloured ones. Thank you very much. Oh yes, that's the coloured one. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you anyhow.
Don't know which way to go.
I'm not used to bloody restaurants.
Snob.
Who?
The restaurants. Some said just restaurants.
He said he'll serve the wrong side.
They're a bad influence on each other. Is that the
Nick,
law
you need to
school?
sit down there.
Okay, who's giving us that one?
Me.
Go on then, please.
Okay, so we're both here to give you an update on the Q3 performance and a little bit of a snapshot in terms of what's happening currently on crime. So the report that you've got 2 appendices. Appendix A is the colour report that I've given you, which is the report that we receive at NABSCOP and tells us what our crime trends are. And the other appendix that you've got is a report that we've included from the Safer Warwickshire the Safer Warwickshire Partnership Board, based on some crime recording statistics, and we asked for a briefing in terms of why crime was basically high and why does it keep going up, and that gives an overview. So I'll take you through the performance first, and then if there are any questions on that and the additional appendix, we can take those then, if that's okay.
Yep.
So in relation to performance, you'll see that violence against the person and sexual offences have increased by 10% against the 2015-16 baseline. Violence against the person on its own has increased by 10%, again against the same baseline. Domestic burglary within this report has decreased by 19% overall, which was really positive. However, we do recognise that currently there's a spike in burglary that we'll come on to shortly. In relation to total recorded crime, again, that's increased by 10%. Antisocial behaviour, it states there that two categories have increased. It's actually, there's been a decrease by one incident for antisocial behaviour. So you'll see that overall, antisocial behaviour has increased by 2% when compared against the baseline. Reductions have been recorded with environmental ASB and with personal ASB, although it's only one, so it's very slight, but still a decrease. And slight increase with nuisance. In relation to domestic abuse, you'll see that there's been an increase here. So during quarter 3, there have been 1,066, well at the end of quarter 3, there had been 1,066 total violence against the person with injury offences. Of these, 359 related to domestic abuse, and proportionately that represents 34%. And then you'll see on the final page there's a breakdown of borough statistics across the beat areas, and a particular focus, while we kind of look holistically at the whole borough and all of the wards, a particular focus for us recently has been the Abbey ward and Camp Hill as well. So that's it. Any questions?
Yes, and then Chris.
Yeah, one of the issues a year or so ago was the 101 service taking a long while to get through and things, which obviously if it's a murder you don't go through that, but for a lot of the antisocial behaviour and environmental things, there is a problem if the reporting it gets harder. It looks like you've got less graffiti, less stuff, because people actually give up trying to report it. So do we have a feeling if that's getting any better? And for the environmental ASB, does that include stuff that goes to our Enviro team as well as the police?
Okay, so I'll answer your second question first. The Enviro team will deal with the same kind of things that get reported to the police, although the recording that is in here is based on police recorded incidents. So yes, there might be circumstances where an environmental crime team will go and pick up something that has also been reported to the police. Your question about the 101 number, I haven't picked up, and I don't know if anybody's going to tell me different, I haven't picked up any recent issues about the 101 number. Lynn might tell me different.
Tell me different.
Okay.
Yeah, no, the waiting, sorry Chair, but the waiting time on the 101 is still a little bit.
Okay.
I think my husband was on for 12 minutes before it was even answered.
Okay.
So yeah.
In relation to my team, our antisocial behaviour officers and community safety officers don't seem to be picking up, because people will call us as well at the council. They don't seem to be picking up incidents that haven't been reported to the police. The police seem to be very much, we're on the same wavelength and are aware of the issues from a council perspective and a police perspective. So I don't know.
I mean, I can go and look at the data. Certainly the priority will be to answer the 999 calls within whatever time frame. I can't think what the target is, and I think we do quite well on those. If there are issues around 101, I don't think I've picked that up, but there have been some changes within the control room. And certainly looking forward, as Warwickshire and West Mercia continue in the alliance and the development of the new control rooms, there will be a new command and control system, and within that there's a contact management strategy which will enable different ways for people to report. Because at the moment, you can pick up the phone and send in an email. Well, society's moved on from that, and there's lots of different ways that people communicate. And part of that contact management strategy will try and take cognizance of that and allow people different ways of reporting, so that we're more in the 20th century rather than the 19th century, perhaps.
It's just going on that, Chair. I mean, because you're forever getting emails off me about crime and everything else. And one of the things I encourage people to do is, there's an incident number. If you've got any information, dial 101 and give the information over. And what always concerns me, if I'm being that good neighbour and ringing up and after 12 minutes of not being answered, I'm going to say, well, why should I help them? Because they're not even answering me. And that's always going to be my issue with 101, is if it isn't answered, people are going to get frustrated. They're going to get annoyed with me by telling them to dial 101 if they've got any information. So, you know, I mean, I've just showed the councillor there the Bulkington figures. And, you know, I've had 1,700 people look at those figures. And I'm saying to them, dial 101 if you've got information. So my concern is if there's a service there, if it's as long as it's answered, people are happy. But I mean, 12 minutes waiting time.
Yeah.
As I say, my husband just hung up in the end.
I can take that away and I can look at that. I can feed that back to Martin Samuel, who used to be the Borough Commander. He's now responsible for the control room, so he'll have a vested interest in that. So that's fine. I'll take that back as some feedback. I'll tell him it was.
I like that.
It was a personal request.
So goblins
everywhere.
12 minutes.
Yeah, I'd back other ways to report crime. I mean, it's a few years ago now, he was sold in Rimmel, whatever. I was talking to him about possibly introducing something at libraries where you could tap on something on an app or a computer and you could perhaps report it in anonymously. You don't have to do it. Well, that would encourage people who are in town or have not got used to computers to tap on a police logo in a public library. And he was quite interested with that, which never went anywhere.
Well, there's quite significant investment gone in across both forces with regard to the technology that's been invested in.
Yeah.
There's a strong appetite and there's some collaborative work that's going on with other companies. I think it's not Blue Light. It's the name of a company to try and develop apps and such the way they're reporting. So one such way would be around hate crime, where at the moment our concern is we're under-reporting, whereas we would encourage people to use an easier way of reporting their concerns, and if that's through an app and it gets us the information, it might not generate necessarily a crime report, but at least we have a truer picture, then that's got to be a good thing. So I can't give you an answer in terms of here's a menu of options that you're going to be presented with because it's still being developed, but there are a team that are currently working within that and other arenas within the IT world to try and bring us into line with the way that people operate in modern society.
Well, for me as well, what it would do is take away it's a waste of time thing. If it's a waste of time to just go to pop into a library, then it's a waste of time. So, because that's the most thing you hear is it's a waste of time reporting to police and don't do anything, blah, blah, blah. But on this report, most of the ones down, it seems like burglary's gone up. I was just wondering if there's anything you've got specifically aimed at burglary. Because like the other sort of things like ASB and domestic burglary and what have you, they may have gone down because it's been specifically cold. The seasons do reflect on the sort of crime. As soon as it gets warmer, car crime goes up, they leave the windows open, they leave the ignition, the keys in it, all sorts. Like at Albury, Stocky Ford the other night, opportunists trying all cars and vans and nicking tools. I mean, why would you leave your tools in the road? But I was just wondering if there's anything going on the burglary, if he's got anything planned to target burglary other.
Burglary other or burglary?
He said burglary other. It seems like burglary other has gone up. So will that be opportunists on the cars?
Well, burglary other tends to be like outbuildings and sheds and stuff like that. So your theft on your cars comes under acquisitive crime. So it's like theft from motor vehicles.
Yes, so where will that be in that table then?
So theft from motor vehicles isn't a priority for NABSCOP. It's acquisitive crime. The only part, so acquisitive crime's made up of four different categories, and the only one that we look at, is that right, Paul?
Yeah. vehicle burglary, robbery.
Yeah. So the only one that we kind of focus on is the domestic burglary, because that's where we feel that has the greatest impact on the community on a personal level. Appreciate people having things stolen out of a car is also a personal issue, but you can educate people as much as you can, and it's their choice if they leave it. And I know that that's a bit of a contentious issue, because obviously there are offenders that are out there that are taking advantage of that, and that doesn't make it okay, but people do have a responsibility for their own personal belongings, that you can only educate so much, you can't enforce against it. So if you're asking where does that link in here, if you look on the second page, you'll see all vehicle crime and theft from vehicles. Can you see it in this cross-cutting issue, cross-cutting themes? So we do keep watching eye on it, but in terms of prioritising resources, we don't do that. What we do for domestic burglary is that every victim of domestic burglary gets a visit, and obviously they have a visit from police, but they get a pack, they get a burglary pack that will give tips of how to kind of keep property safe, practical advice, emotional support from victim support and the like. And then obviously the other thing is that offenders who are out in the community, who are prolific, are managed through the integrated offender management scheme. So there's a way of dealing with high profile, high impact offences as well.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the first page, the one which I'm most concerned about are the sexual offences. It seems to be accounting for 300 of the increase to 548, comparing the 2 quarters. If you add the violence against the person and sexual offences with other sexual offences, that is quite concerning. 300 or just over 50% of the increase is down to sexual offences in one way or the other. Are you able to give any more information about that? Any themes which are emerging, actions which you're taking?
Some of it will be referred to in the Chief Constable's briefing paper with regard to some of the changes that have taken place. I would say an increase in reporting of sexual offences should be seen as a positive, because actually we are not in a position where we think that the actual number of sexual offences is going up. I think it probably remains static. What we are seeing is the Savile effect. So now people are coming forward and reporting things of a non-recent nature. They are now being disclosed and recorded when officers do a domestic abuse, stalking and harassment risk assessment. We call that a DASH assessment, whereby if somebody discloses something that hasn't happened then, it's happened previously, that still gets recorded as a crime of a sexual nature. And also we are seeing an increase through the MASH, the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub, whereby other agencies are now telling us what they have found and their disclosures in their field of work that now results in a crime that's recorded, but that might not necessarily result in anything that takes place in terms of investigation and outcome. It might be something that's dealt with as a safeguarding issue, because it may well be, it involves young people below the age of criminal responsibility. It may well be issues that are best dealt with by way of education, that we wouldn't employ sort of punitive measures. So it's quite a complex picture, and a lot of it is to do with the way that we record things now. There's still a sense within both forces that we are under-recording crime in terms of what the National Crime Recording Standards would expect compared to what we're actually recording. So we're still on this journey of accepting that we need to get better at recording crime.
I think that's more reassuring, Chair, knowing that it's improving on the recording than actually a gut feeling that it's actually increasing out there in the community. I think that's more reassuring, and a message we need to get out there more.
One of the points I picked up on here, where it shows in the figures that rape has got a reduction of 1%, actually is a bit of a concern for me, because we should be seeing those consistently high levels. That's not because I'm expecting an increase in the number of offences, but you balance that off with the other category, which is other sexual offences, so you wonder whether the same things are being reported, but it's which category of crime it falls into. So that gives me some reassurance that in actual fact we're in a fairly healthy place.
Thank you, Chair.
And just in relation to that, on the inspector's just referred to, sorry, Chief Inspector, has just referred to the Chief Constable's report. If you look at page, I think it's page 17 of the appendix, can you see? And it talks about the change in nature. So it talks about why have we seen these changes. One is the continued impact of data integrity. The other is the change in nature of criminality. The third is about greater collaboration, as we've said, about work with the MASH. The fourth is about new crime categories being introduced. So actually violent crime isn't just violent crime, it's things like communication, etc. So all of those have kind of take them all into account. Yes, you know, there are crimes that are taking place, but that kind of puts it into context. And it's not just a local picture or a county-wide picture, it reflects what's happening nationally as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Any further?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. For one, Tom, going on.
It was just a quick thing really. I'm looking at the Arbury figures. I do know why the figures have gone up in the domestic burglary and the burglary other week. We've had pretty much a one-chap crime wave in the area, but fortunately he's now detained at Her Majesty's pleasure, and hopefully we should see that drop again next time. But it's just a quick thing to say that I've had a couple of surgeries in the last few months, and they've both been attended by PC's Dave Died and Andy Morrissey, and that's working out really well. And they feed information back to me, and I feed information back to them. And it's just to pass on to know that they're actually doing a really good job in my area, and they are quite they deserve a bit of thanks for that.
That's very nice of you to say. I shall pass that on. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the report. We now move on to the next one. It's the work programme, and then we're on to confidential. Please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to update the panel really, you'll see on here it says that we've got the tenancy agreement.
Page 280.
Sorry. The tenancy agreement review has been on there. It's been on there for a little while, but I just advised that went to single member decision a week or two back, so it won't be coming here. Also, because of the size of this agenda, I failed to put on the petitions policy item from the last meeting that was referred to this meeting. I do apologise for that, but it will be going forward onto next year's work programme. And this is the last meeting. Sorry.
The SPO. Can that come on?
Oh yeah. What's it?
Public Space Protection Order.
So, Rachel sent me an email this afternoon.
So you're begging email.
A begging,
Please,
yeah.
come to
Have you done what I asked in return? Yeah, so
Did you both
she's
speak in
asked me to
voices
put
like
another
Have we
item
got
on
the
the
police here?
agenda, which I will do. But this is the last year. This is the last meeting of this year. So anything now will that's left on there will go forward for consideration at the next meeting of the new panel, and you may or may not be on that. As you have all agreed, the ONS review report that's in here, I would like to suggest that for the first meeting of the next panel, that we have this, obviously this work programme, but also we will be bringing the forward plan to that meeting, and the end of year performance report, and that's all I would like to put on that agenda, because I would like to invite the portfolio holders and the directors to that meeting so that we can have a proper discussion about the forthcoming work programme. So that's my plan, but as a result of the review that we did, so I'm just flagging that up. So although I've said that we will be taking the petitions procedure, it might not be June meeting, it might be July. But
Yes, good.
Well, I don't know why it's not on here, to be honest. I don't know why we did agree that we was going to invite the Police and Crime Commissioner back.
yes, he's on.
Is it where?
Second one down.
I can't see, can I?
We should have been saying he is one person that will be coming to that meeting as well, because
2017.
I've already got him booked in.
Definitely.
He was supposed to come last meeting, but his daughter was getting married or something.
Oh, yeah,
That's right, yeah. We didn't know that, did we?
Okay, that's the programme in front of you. We'll see what happens next year. This year. Right, we're now going into the pink paper confidential. Got anybody in here that shouldn't be here?
Okay.
No?
Oh yes,
Got one?
stop the recording.
Somebody